Hi guys, this is Arivalagan. I'm a practitioner of Cloud 4 Academy. So I'm going to demo how we can set up the Kafka cluster setup using Strimzi Operator in Minikube. Minikube is a single cluster node, is a Kubernetes single cluster node where we can test it in our local, right? The Strimzi cluster setup, Strimzi Operator is a free open source. There is no cost for that. So when you are setting in cloud, we can using Strimzi, we can set up the cluster, Kafka cluster setup, like how many brokers we want, how many zookeepers we want, what are the configuration, SSL setup, so everything we can configure in Kafka Strimzi as part of the cluster setup. Just we will execute the YAML file and that will create that, right? Strimzi we need to install and we can do that. So our cluster setup is ready. Only for EBS volume, when you are storing the cluster data, Kafka cluster setup data, it has to be stored in AWS or any cloud provider. For that we need to pay. But there is no charge for Kafka cluster setup when you are using Kafka Strimzi, right? So in this demo particularly, we are going to set up in our local using Minikube. We are going to set up Kafka cluster setup using Strimzi operator in Minikube. And first thing is we need to run the RBAC scripts, like service account and role binding scripts we need to execute in order to set up the cluster so that we can get the right access. So that after that we can execute all Kafka cluster setup scripts, and then Strimzi operator we have to execute, and we can get into the demo. Thank you for listening. Yes. As we discussed, I'm going to demonstrate how we can set up the Kafka cluster setup using Strimzi operator in Kubernetes in Minikube, single cluster node. We need to install a Docker in Windows in order to use Minikube. So I have already installed a Docker, so I started the Docker also. Docker, you can see here actually Docker is already started. If you see the Docker, you can see Docker icon, like Docker is running. So, and then we have to create a virtual machine. We can use the multiple way. I am using Docker based virtual machine. So once we configure it, then you can install Minikube in that node, and it's a single node, only one node actually, and then we can start set up our cluster in Minikube. We can go to Google Drive, install Minikube. If you say Minikube on Windows, you can get that actually. You can get in Kubernetes website. They'll give the site Minikube start Minikube. See, Minikube start Minikube installation. See Windows, and so whichever version you want, you can follow these steps to install Minikube. And then you need to configure the virtual machine, right? If you configure, then our Minikube will install in your system. Once the Minikube is installed, then you can go here, any other console or folder, anywhere you can go. You can go on Minikube start. So this will start our Minikube. So this will take some time because I have added some cluster, right? So it will take some time to start the Minikube. Once Minikube is started, then we have to create a scripts, right? Kafka cluster setup script. I can share the screen. I can show you the scripts how I have written. So this is a script, Kafka cluster setup script, where you can see API version and Kafka, my cluster replicas. How many replicas you want broker, you can create how many brokers you want, we can create it. And these are how many ports, like HTTP port or HTTP SSL means we have to create separate, like SSL and TLS true, and certificates we can configure. There are multiple configuration we can do as part of the storage volume, where the Kafka cluster data has to be stored. Class name, if it is cloud provider, we have to give the cloud provider, like EBS volume in AWS. So like that we have to give, like, right, storage volumes. So like that zookeeper, where the data has to be stored, how many volumes of data, it will be block storage. If we take AWS, it will be block storage, it will be stored, right? So this is the way we need to store our the Kafka cluster data will be stored. So there are multiple configuration we can do as part of this. If you go to the Strimzi website, where you can find multiple method, they will tell. Let's say if you search Kafka cluster setup in Strimzi. You can find actually configuring Strimzi means if you go there, you can see they will give some sample scripts. You can copy and just you can reuse that script. Just you can alter that whichever configuration you want. You can see that, right? There are multiple configurations are there as part of this. When you're going to production, you need to configure multiple properties. So we can add the property and you can test in your Minikube. Your scripts are working, your clusters are working. Then you can move to AWS cloud and you can test your changes, right? That's what you need to do. And now still Minikube is started. Now I'm just going to run the kubectl. Kubectl, is a client, Kubernetes client, so which will use to connect a Kubernetes and run our scripts, right? So if we see kubectl get PO, any pod is running. See, 3 pods are running, Zookeeper is running, Kafka is running, all these pods are running, right? So now I'm just going to stop these pods. I'm going to remove this pod because we are going to set the delete pod and we are going to set new one, right? So I'm just remove this pod as well as I'm going to remove Kafka cluster as well. So Kafka, so this broker actually I have set up one I have set up a single broker, single Zookeeper, right? So we no need to go for any kind of like a Docker kind of thing. We can set up the cluster, the Kafka install, everything it will be taken care. So now still Kafka is crashed. Okay, Kafka is gone. So right. So this is the way we need to set up our cluster. Go to Minikube. Now I'm going to execute these scripts. So just this is the folder Minikube. I have written this couple of scripts. I'm going to execute. So this is the script actually. We have written the Strimzi Kafka cluster. So this cluster we have, as I said, we have multiple configuration we can do. I just did this very simple configuration, and I'm just going to Minikube. This is a Minikube Helm. I have already installed Helm. So this is the Helm installation. We need to follow these steps actually. So just I can show you Helm repository. You need to add the Helm repository. Just go here and then add the Helm repository. So I already added, that's why it's saying already added. So this is the way you have to install the Helm repository. So that Helm first you need to install in your Minikube and then in Windows, and then we have to run this command, and then we have to run this whichever version we want, Strimzi version we can find. This is the latest version I guess, so we can version based we can install using Helm. We can install Helm is a tool which is supposed to run our Strimzi cluster, right, to run the Strimzi operator. So Helm, that's why I added. I am running in Windows, right? So now I set up that, I run that command. So now it's set up in the Strimzi operator. Strimzi operator is getting installed. So we need to verify whether it's installed or not. So again kubectl get pod. If I put kubectl, see this crashback you can leave it. See Strimzi operator is running but not started. It's still running. It's not ready state, right? It will take some time. So now again I think another image also I deployed. Okay, I will remove this command. I am going to get deployment. What are the deployment? So do deployment. Deployment is there. One is that I am going to delete. This is a application, Kafka application to deploy that. So currently I remove that. Otherwise space, we don't have enough space, right? So I will remove that. Now again kubectl get PO, kubectl PO, click PO. It's now running. Still it's not ready. So if you want to see the logs, we can see kubectl logs, and then copy this pod name and then enter the C. Strimzi is running. You can see the logs. See, these are the things you have to very careful when you are testing. We have to check the logs. How Strimzi is working properly. See, now Strimzi is started properly. There is no issue. There are no error, right? So Strimzi is started. You can see here. So this is the way you can check the logs. Once you set the logs, now Strimzi is, so again you can check p dot, yeah. Now see one by one means running. Now running. Now I'm going to run the cluster. The Kafka cluster I'm going to run it. Right? So this is the way I'm going to run it. Apply -f. Since I'm in the same folder, I'm going to run this script. You need to keep it in mind that this is the script I'm going to run that. So to set up the add the broker and zookeeper, I'm running this script. So this will add the broker and zookeeper. It will configure it in the cluster already. So Strimzi will take care of that. If you want to check the log, we cannot check the particular pod for that. So we need to check whether our Kafka broker and zookeeper is started or not. Just run that. See, only our Kafka is running, but zookeeper is not started. So we have to see the login log. Go there, logs and Strimzi logs, Strimzi operator logs. We need to see. See, now it's going on. Console means it is done. So still it's going on. Logs are going on. If you want to see logs, you can keep pressing enter every time and logs keep updated. Right now I'm clearing that. I'm going to check whether it's started or not. See, it's not working. So it's crashed up. There is some issue in that. So you'll see the logs again. I'm going to see the logs. So logs. So space issue, actually basically space issue, because this virtual machine is one single node, so it doesn't have the sufficient space. That's the reason it's crashing that. So but still reconcile, we'll see. It will take time. So it will take time, right? So it will take time to reconcile again. So what it will know, it will start that Kafka broker and then zookeeper, reconcile it, and then it will, once you reconcile, it will come this message like reconciled. Will be reconciled means it's going to reconcile, means it's doing the setup Kafka, creating the brokers and the zookeeper process. That's the reason it is showing all this message. These are a success message. There are no error, but still there are warning. Guys, we will see. I think now it will be created. Kubectl get pod. See, now clusters are set up. My cluster is a Kafka, one Kafka broker, and another is zookeeper. So one zookeeper now created, both are running state. So Strimzi also is running. So this is the way we have to set up our cluster. If we see the Strimzi log, we have to always see, go to get logs and check these logs. If we see, go there, let's say kubectl logs, and then check this log. Copy this Strimzi pod name and check the log. It will show the log. If there is any error, previously it got some error, so that's why it's crashed up. Again it's reconciled, and again it was set up in the cluster. So this is the way we have to set up the cluster in using Strimzi. So using Strimzi, we can set up the Kafka. It's a free open source. That's a very important thing. Strimzi is a free open source, so we can set up our cluster without having any cost, without paying anything. We can set up even in cloud computing, cloud. Let's say we are going to set up in AWS using EKS. We need to set up EKS and then go to run the scripts, which I showed you the steps here, follow the steps. Strimzi, first go to these steps we need to follow that, right? First install the Helm and then repository and then run this version. This Strimzi version we can find where this I think the latest version, which will install Kafka everything. It will install all the Kafka related package, everything. Once you install that, and then go and run this script which I have already shown you, right? This script we need to run that in AWS EKS. So for that we need to go to the EC2 instance. We have to create and roles setup related to EKS. We have to create roles, policies, and then we have to log in, and then we have to set up the Kubernetes kubectl client. We have to install, and then we have to install our Helm. And after that we have to install the Helm repository. Then we have to install Strimzi using Helm in AWS, and then we have to install we have to run the scripts. So if you run this, it will be creating it will be running like this mode. Then go to the application, deploy the application. Now I have written a Kafka application like a microservice I have created. So this microservice, if you see that this is a controller, just passing the information. When I calling this service, name, address, company, this data will capture, send that, just simple application, and then this will be sending, and there is a consumer microservice. So here both consumer and receiver should be separate microservice, but since for testing I have written both in the same microservice. If you go to receiver will announce the Kafka listener, and then it will go here, it will call the DynamoDB, AWS DynamoDB, and then DynamoDB will update the data into the DynamoDB to insert that. So DynamoDB, this is a way we have to create a connection object. We have to create a connection object. The DynamoDB, this is the way Amazon, this way we have to create in Spring Boot, and then we have to go to access how we are inserting the data. So we have to call this DynamoDB configuration client, and then this is a table name, means collection name is a NoSQL database. DynamoDB is a NoSQL database. So we have to insert the data, create a customer data object, and then insert the data. So this is the way, and receiver will insert the data into the DynamoDB, AWS DynamoDB. So this microservice we have written it. So this is a consumer, this is a consumer. So here the important thing is how we will get the host name. Normally the bootstrap servers we are giving local host, right? Instead of that we have to give pod name dot service name. So here if we see here, this is the pod name. My cluster Kafka 0 is the pod name. That's why pod name I am given, and then we have to give the service name. This is the service name. How we can get the service name? We can go here like kubectl get svc. If we get svc, so this is the Kafka broker service name. My cluster Kafka broker. This is the broker service name. So this service name we have to copy here, and then port number. So if we give like this way, so your changes will start working on it. That's it. This is the application changes you need to do, and rest all other so this is the way we have to find a cluster service name, and then pod name dot service name we have to give. Whenever we are setting the Kafka cluster, we have to find the broker name, broker IP address, and IP address, like IP address, broker IP address means we have to add pod name plus service name. This is what you have to, I have given the code, right? Like that we have to give pod name dot service name. So and the port number. So this is the way, whether we are using Docker or anywhere, we have to give like this only when we are setting the cluster environment, Kafka cluster environment, right? So we have to give this way. So this is the way we have to set up the Kafka cluster using Strimzi open source operator, right? So we can set up the cluster, right? And then so this is code changes. You can still remain, you can create a consumer, producer, and the configuration, and those things are still remain same. How we can do that? You can only, the main changes is Kafka broker bootstrap server's name, IP name. That is like this way we need to give, right? And so that's all about our demo. So this is a Strimzi. We have done our setup. So you can follow the same thing in our Minikube local, and then you can go to AWS and you can do the setup in Kafka cluster setup. Okay. So we will be covering as part of our all the syllabus, like AWS course or Java course or Node.js. We will be covering this setup. We will be covering this part in as part of our Cloud Academy course, right? So thank you for listening us. We are looking forward to join in our Cloud Academy.